Hello, it's Dave. We're going to look at an English opening. The ECO code will be A39. Some of the themes we'll be looking at will be light and dark square weaknesses, how one pawn loss leads to another, space and coordination of pieces. This game was a correspondence game played on the LSS server, and it's a German server. Players from all over the world play on it. Both players are at the 2000 level. So let's take a look at the game. The game starts with knight to f3, knight to f6, c4, c5, knight to c3, knight to c6, generally the symmetrical English, g3, g6, bishop to g2, bishop to g7, castles, castles, and d4. White strikes in the center, advancing his d-pawn. Black captures c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, d6, queen to d3. This is a typical opening position in English. If you play this, you'll most probably have seen this many times. If not, you might take note, and this is pretty well how this particular variation is played by the best players in the world. And the next move is a6, bishop to d2, rook to b8, rook at a to c1. White's possibly anticipating opening up the c file. Bishop to f5, attacking the queen, and white responds with e4. The pawn blocks the attack of the bishop, but it also blocks the scope of white's bishop. So just something to take note when you move a pawn like this. You blunt the attack of your opponent, but you also limit the scope of your own player. The next move was bishop to d7, rook at f to d1, moving the rook to the half-open d file, always a good move. Knight to g4, black plans to reposition his knight. White plays b3, knight to e5, attacking the queen. Queen retreats to e2, and now black plays f5. And now you can see that possibly black's weakened his light squares, leading to his king. Of course, he still has his light squared bishop to help defend him if necessary. Next move is bishop to f4, b6, knight to d5. The knight is looking at the b6 pawn and the e7 pawn, and of course the f6 square. So the knight is very strongly posted. It's a good place for it. Black plays f takes e4. White, let me back up just one move here. Black could have played e6, attacking the knight, of course making the knight retreat, but then he has a backwards d6 pawn, which will be a target for white. So actually the game move f takes e4 was the better move. So let's back up to it. After knight to d4, f takes e4. White plays bishop takes e4, reactivating the bishop. King to h8, getting the king off of the light square diagonal. f3, protecting the bishop. And now rook to e8, protecting the e7 pawn. White plays queen to e3. He improves his position of his queen. Move back one move here. You can see that the white queen is on the light squares, pretty well blocked by his pawns and pieces. By moving the queen up to the dark square, gives his queen much more scope and the ability to attack more squares. The next move is rook to f8, and now bishop to g5. The bishop and knight are attacking the e7 square. Black plays bishop to f6, which turns out to be an error. A better move would have been rook to f7, protecting the e-pawn. But in the game, black played bishop to f6, and now white begins a little combination where he wins a pawn. It starts with knight takes f6, e takes f6, and now bishop to h6, attacking the rook and controlling the dark square around the black king. The next move was rook to f7, and now rook takes d6. White has won a pawn, and he has a very good position here. And the next move is queen to e7. Black takes the b pawn, rook takes b6, and rook takes b6, queen takes b6. White is up 2 pawns and controls a lot of space in black's position. He's much better posted here. And the next move is queen to e8. White plays rook to d1. Of course, white could have won this. This pawn, but his attack and taking control of the file was much more important than the extra pawn. After rook to d1, black makes his second and final error, which was f5. He attacks the bishop, but he actually forces the bishop onto a much stronger square, and that is bishop to d5. Attacking the rook drops to, or moves over to e7, and now white plays the move queen to f6 check, and next move will be mate. If white, the only move that black has, of course, is rook to g7, and then queen to g7 is checkmate. So hopefully in this game you could see how, as I started off, how one pawn loss led to the second. White controlled more space and took advantage of it. The coordination of his pieces were much better than black's, and of course white controlled those dark and light squares around the black king, took advantage of it, and checkmated. I hope you enjoyed this game, and thank you very much.